Greetings, music nerds, and welcome to Season 8 of the Music Makers and Soul Shakers podcast. This season is brought to you by our newest sponsors, Larrivee Guitars and Fishman Amplification. I'm your host, Steve Dawson, coming to you from the Hen House Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. This season, I'll be taking you on a journey down the many rabbit holes in the process of making great music. I'll be speaking to instrumentalists, songwriters, producers, up-and-comers through legendary veterans, and we'll go deep into their history and their process of creating unforgettable music. This show continues to be listener-supported. You can help keep the show going with a one-time donation or a Patreon subscription. And when you sign up for Patreon, you get an ad-free version of the show, as well as getting entered to win some killer prizes from our sponsors at the end of the season. We have an incredible Chase Bliss Lossy pedal up for grabs, as well as a Fishman acoustic guitar pickup and effects pedals, as well as a pedal from Union Tube and Transistor, and more. You can get links to all this and sign up now at makersandshakerspodcast.com. Meanwhile, many thanks to the sponsors for this season. Please check them out and let them know that I sent you. They are Larrivee Guitars, Fishman Pickups, Chase Bliss Pedals, Union Tube and Transistor, Spectra 1964, and the Hen House Hang. All right, thanks for tuning in, and let's get down to it. Hey there, music nerds, and welcome to episode number 165 of the show. I am psyched to welcome G Love to the show today. First off, I would just like to thank a couple of new Patreon contributors, James Granger and Allison Volger. I really appreciate that. And I will just mention also that anybody that signs up to the Patreon as of now, right through to the end of the year, or the end of the season, that is, gets entered automatically in the draw. And the draw includes some wicked prizes from our sponsors like Union Tube and Transistor guitar pedals, Chase Bliss pedal, that's really cool, Fishman pedals, and there's also a DI and a pickup, and some swag, possibly from Larrivee, not totally sure about that yet, but anyway, all the sponsors are very generous. Oh, and a DI from Spectra 1964. Killer stuff. If you're into music gear, that is the prize that you want. So all you need to do is sign up to our Patreon over at makersandshakerspodcast.com, and you're automatically entered. All right, so on the show today is Garrett Dutton, better known to you and to me as G Love of G Love and Special Sauce. And Garrett and I spoke a while back on Zoom, and I'll just mention that he was out on tour while we did this, and he was walking around in the wilds of Oregon as we were talking. And so if it sounds a little out of breath now and again, it's because he's out cruising the countryside. And really funnily, he also got a little lost as we were talking because we're getting so deep into it. And he got lost, but he luckily found his way back to the hotel that he was staying at. So yay for that. Anyway, G Love and Special Sauce appeared on my radar back in the early 90s when I was just getting into playing in bands. And they broke out of the Boston via Philadelphia music scene. And the debut album was pretty massive in my world. I think they were pretty mainstream successful too, but really in my scene of young musicians and bands playing great music, he was really at the top of the heap. Garrett grew up in Philadelphia and was seemingly equally influenced by blues, folk, and hip-hop. Everyone from John Hammond to Lightnin' Hopkins to Muddy Waters to the Beastie Boys and Schoolie D. They were all major influences on him. And he got really into playing guitar at a young age. He learned a bunch of Beatles tunes and learned how to play, and eventually found his way to Bob Dylan, which led to him playing harmonica in Iraq. And the interest in that led him to my friend John Hammond. And that sort of opened the floodgates for him musically. He moved to Boston around the same time I did in the early 90s and started playing around Cambridge with his band that included Jimmy Jazz on the bass and Jeffrey Clemens on drums. And I should point out that Jeffrey Clemens now plays pretty regularly around here in Nashville with my bandmate in the Volcano Brothers, Dave Jakes. And they play in Kenny Vaughn's band called the Imperial Blues Hour. And it's not exactly a blues band. It's kind of a psychedelic, progressive Jimmy Reed, Fabulous Thunderbirds trip out situation. So if you find yourself in Nashville, go see them. They play regularly at Dee's up there in Madison. And Jeffrey sings all the tunes in that band and has a wicked feel for that Jimmy Reed kind of groove. And his voice is great too. In any case, the band came to be known as G Love and Special Sauce. And their debut album, just called G Love and Special Sauce in 1994, is a killer. I saw them a few times around then, and they put on a wicked show. They put out a bunch of records between 94 and around '08. And then there's a bit of a hiatus. Garrett got into producing as well, made a couple of cool John Hammond records and some other stuff for other artists. And then Special Sauce got back to it in around 2020 with an album called The Juice. That's really great. And then their latest album is really awesome and worth checking out. Produced by Luther Dickinson down at his Zebra Ranch studio in Mississippi. And it's called Philadelphia, Mississippi. And it came out in 2022. And lately, Special Sauce has been doing some shows commemorating 30 flippin' years since his debut album came out. He's a really interesting dude. We had a great conversation, and you can get all the latest info and upcoming tour dates over at www.philadelphonic.com. Philadelphonic. I like that word. That's where you can find them. Enjoy my conversation with G Love. You know, interestingly, I think we're exactly the same age. And, you know, I've been making records myself, not as long as you have. You sort of got in the game really early. And I know that right now you're re-releasing your first record, and I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about that experience, like what it's been like. Have you actually gone in and like gone through the original tapes and everything? Like how deep have you gone in the reissue of the first record?
Yeah, no, I haven't done that. No, I don't. No.
Okay.
I think that's cool, but honestly, it's kind of a little unrealistic. I mean, for one thing, we're not making a new record, nor are we like going to get outtakes. We're specifically releasing the first album again, and the thing that we did add to it was a bunch of. There are some kind of B-sides from the earlier singles. Like there's the fast version of Blues Music, which just was a slightly different tempo. It was a good take. And then there's some songs from a 1994 live show at the Knitting Factory in New York City. We did 2 shows that were recorded and mixed like by like a recording truck, because of course that was analog. And so there's some songs from that, but yeah, it wasn't like, I guess I should say the project didn't call to like go to master tapes. And that being said, I mean, look, those tapes are 30 years old and they haven't been kept in a vault. So I don't know that they, that the actual master reels are still, what's the word? Usable.
Yeah. They could be a pile of dust and ash by now.
It's really interesting that you asked that to me, though, because it's something that I've thought about over the years, because I actually have the master tapes.
You do?
And actually, there's a project that I'm working on right now, which is an NFT project where it's called Master Reels. And it's basically like I have a storage space in Philadelphia where I have, well, no, they're not there anymore. But I have like all the master reels from my first record and many other master reels from different albums over the years that, like I said, I've just been sitting in a storage space just because for whatever reason we ended up with them after the recording process. And I thought, well, what can we do with these things? Because right now I'm just paying, a couple $100 for them to sit around and collect dust. So
yeah,
I was going to
put them to work.
We're going to do it. Yeah, we're going to do them as an NFT and actually give them, like, you purchase the NFT and actually you can redeem the physical master reel, and you wouldn't own the master, like the rights to the music, but you would just own that physical as a memorabilia, right?
Okay.
And then the other thing, not to keep going on about this for the whole hour, but the other thing about the master reels thing, because this, look, this is a dream that we all have come across as recording artists. Like, what if we go back into the master reels from that album or that session and dig up, the stuff that we didn't use and, what's in there? Well, hey, man, we already did that. We did that when it was going down for like months and picked the best shit off it. And that's what the record is. I mean, yeah, are there some cool moments that are still on those tapes? Yeah, but again, like, who has a budget right now to...
Exactly.
I should say, I don't have a budget right now to sit in a studio and listen to those tapes, which we already listened to meticulously in 1993.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess my recording experience started more in like 98 or something, but just the thought of going back and actually listening to some of the first things that I was ever involved in is actually, I mean, I don't know if it would be any good. It probably isn't, but it would be really interesting for me. Just like as a musician, I'd be like, oh my God, that's so cool. I don't know if I would remember all that, but there must be some things on there where, sure, like, yeah, you did take all the best stuff and like finish that first record, but you were probably like 20 years old and now you're not,
that's true.
And maybe there's some like, maybe it's like a whole different trip now. Like maybe,
it's a great point. It's kind of like when you take a photo, right? Like if you and I took a selfie right now today, we would say, God damn, I look like shit. I look old. But guess what? If you look at that same selfie in 10 years, you're gonna be like, wow, I really looked great when I was 51. But you're totally right. Like when I listen back to that record, even like you're like, God, you couldn't make a record like that today because there's so many mistakes and shit that's out of tune. And
is that what you hear when you listen to that first record?
Well, no, I mean, I hear this glorious vibe of like this, like a imperfect piece of vibey perfection. But that's what I'm saying. You couldn't make that today because A, I have a guitar tuner. B, there's Pro Tools. There's Pro Tools. C, we're like more adept on our instruments, I think.
Yeah.
So those first couple of records are really special like that in a sense that they're truly analog records that have that warmth and have this thing about them that you can't really replicate now because the technology that we have today absolutely prohibits us from making those kind of records because it's really hard to not use Pro Tools when it's right there. Even if you say, we're going to go cut this to tape, pretty soon you're cutting it to tape and then it's going on to Pro Tools and you're just doing the same thing.
Yep.
Like you got the whole rig right there. So,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I remember when those first couple of records came out because I was the same age more or less as you are. And they were, a big part of, I was in Canada. I was growing up in Vancouver. And those records were huge there. To me and in the scene that I was in, everybody knew them and everybody played them. I don't know how big they actually got like on radio and stuff in Canada, but to me, they seemed like really big. And listening back to them today before we were talking, they've aged really well. Like they sound killer. Those are good sounding records, man.
I mean, yeah.
Also, interestingly, for me, sonically, is I probably didn't realize it back then, but Jeffrey Clemens seems to be like a big driving force too behind the sonics of those records. The drums play a big part in it. They're front and center. Yeah. They're mixed pretty loud, and his groove is really cool. And I go see him play like every couple of weeks. He's got this house gig in Nashville.
Yeah. Imperial Blues Hour.
The Imperial Blues Hour. And
cool.
And man, he's just something else. Like he's such a great drummer. And can you tell me a little bit about meeting him? I know you guys met in Boston, right?
I'll never forget. I had been a street musician, and one of these guys that was a fellow street musician, his name is Fordham Murdy, and there was just all kind of synchronicity happening at the time. Like he heard what I was doing. Because I actually snaked his spot one night in the T in Boston. And so he came by. He was playing like down the platform by the train with no amplifier. And I had lugged all my shit down there. And I said, well, this guy doesn't have an amplifier, so he can't be serious. So I set up and started playing like I didn't hear him. So after a little while, he came in and said, hey, I was playing down there. Oh, shit, sorry. I didn't hear you, bro. Total asshole move, but we it was kind of cutthroat in Boston like that, but we became friends. And
so was he like drumming down in the T?
Oh no, this is the guy that got me to meet Jeff. But
okay.
But Fordham Murdy, he's like, oh yeah, my older sister's dating this guy that does kind of similar thing to you. His name's Mike Dowdy from Soul Coffee.
Oh, wow.
And anyway, so he called me one night. They had a band called Banana Fish, and they needed an opener because their opener canceled, and would I do it? So my boss left me off work. I went to this bar called the Tam O'Shanter in Brookline, Mass.
Yeah, man.
And so I played that night for the band I was opening up for, the sound man, the bartender, the cocktail waitress, the owner of the club, and this weird guy at the bar who was looking through the help wanted because he was getting to a point where he couldn't make rent as a drummer. And so I did my shit and
just solo.
Came off, yeah. And I just solo acoustic, and then I come off stage, and then this Jeff comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, that was really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks a lot." I started walking away like I had somewhere to go, And then he goes, I'm a drummer. And I was like, "Oh shit, really?" And so we just talked that night till the train stopped running, and then he gave me a ride home, and then, we made plans to have a rehearsal. And then the first couple of gigs were just Jeff and I.
Oh yeah.
And see, Jeff is about just shy of 10 years my senior. So
oh, okay. I wondered about that because he
so he had a car, for instance.
Perfect.
and he and then there was this, so it was me and this 17-year-old bass player who also didn't have a car, so Jeff would like drive us. He would be so pissed. But we did the first couple of gigs just drums and guitar, and because Jeff was an established drummer in town,
was he?
I was able to call. Yeah, because he had a band called Who Be Dat, and they came just about as close as you can get to getting a record deal with that signing, and their whole process had, emotionally devastated Jeff towards the music business. So this was kind of like his last Hail Mary.
Oh.
And I think when he met me, he kind of saw. He immediately understood what I was doing because he was a blues guy, as you know. He's a jazz guy, and he is a New Orleans funk guy. So he immediately, I would play him hip hop, like Tribe Called Quest or Gangstar, and he would say, "Oh, yo, that's a meter sample," and I was like, "Who are the meters?"
Right. So he was giving you like little music lessons too.
Oh yeah. So he definitely. Look, Jeff is kind of he actually is a great producer. He doesn't get the chance often, but he has great ideas.
I bet.
And he and he's very like meticulous about his sound and his presentation and his drums and like his approach to drumming and pocket, wanting to be really like kind of laying back on the tempo and but also still like hitting the shit. And so Jeff's great. He's not on this tour because he kind of his thing was always like, "Hey, if I make $1 million, you'll never see me again." So whatever, he made his $1 million in the bank. He owns a house in Nashville, and he's just not so he just doesn't want to be on a bus, I think. But we did do a European tour in the fall, so we're friends and comrades and musical. So yeah, it's not like a breakup or anything like that. It's more of a COVID came and a lot of people, decided for a change.
Yeah. So at that point, tell me about the busking thing. So you were just like doing solo. You'd show up at the T in Brookline or whatever, and just play like blues tunes, or what was your vibe at that point?
Yeah, I had just started rapping, and so. But I was doing what I called street side blues, which was like, Delta blues, kind of with lyrics that were about the city of Philadelphia, and the city of Boston. Then when I moved there, and so just kind of, and then there's the hip hop element. See, the hip hop element came because one night in Philly when I was busking, I started rapping the lyrics for "Paid in Full," by Eric B. and Rakim over my I had going, and and then I was like, it was like the sky opened up, and it was really an epiphany kind of moment, and I knew, I was like, oh shit, that's it. Like, I know I'm the only kid that's playing a dobro and rapping in the world right now. Like, I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was like, so then I went home the next day and wrote a rap. My first rap was called Rhyme for the Summertime, and it was about bicycle couriers. So I
Cool.
was writing about all these things that were happening in Philly, the graffiti writers,
Yeah.
basketball courts, homeless people, skateboard, all the hip hop stuff that I was living in, and that was what it was.
Were you also ad-libbing lyrics and stuff? Like was that something that you were sort of honing as you were busking too? Was like improvising lyrics as well as, guitar stuff?
I think so. I mean, I think that's kind of a huge part of hip hop, right? Is like
Yeah.
freestyle.
Yeah.
That's kind of, look, we didn't, we're the same age. So as the first generation of, 15-year-olds or 13-year-olds that grew up with, Run DMC and LL Cool J and the Beastie Boys, I never thought was considered to be a rapper, but you knew all the lyrics and could rap along with the song. And then you'd hang out with your buddies and, freestyle and stuff. So yeah, always was improvising and certainly like freestyling. And then I think the main thing is that when you come across a good idea, you got to write it down. That's where a lot of guys can really freestyle, but you got to be able to write. So writing's always something that, has been my essence since I was, 15. The ability or the desire, or just the knee-jerk reaction to life to want to write a song about something that's happening in my life. I don't know why I did, but I did. And
Yeah. It seems like a lot of your songs are sort of based on like very stark observances of just sort of everyday life, and that's probably where that comes from. It's just like, starting out by coming up with these little vignettes and freestyling from there.
Yeah.
So I get why the rap and hip hop and, like the time that you grew up and the place that you grew up in Philly, that kind of music was everywhere. What's the deal with the blues background? Like, how did you get into blues stuff? That seems like the oddball, whereas really like a lot of people think of you as sort of more, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess you are sort of known as hip hop and blues, but the blues part sort of like overrides sometimes, and it's definitely like a big part of what you do. So where did that all come from?
Yeah. So yeah, great. Cause basically like my mother put me in guitar lessons when I was 8, and I quickly found out that I had no kind of natural ability or even really desire to play guitar. I don't know why, but it was like an after school thing once a week during the school year from when I was 8 till I was 13. And then when I was 13, I could finally tune the guitar. My guitar teacher used to like put my rhythm was so non-existent. My guitar teacher would put my foot on top of his foot and tap his foot so he could try to get me to feel where the beat was.
What kind of lessons were these? Were you learning like rock tunes, or like what was the general gist of the lesson?
Yeah, like acoustic guitar was what I always got, and yeah, Beatles songs, mostly Beatles songs. Learning to play and sing Beatles songs.
Oh, no kidding! Wow, I wouldn't have known that.
So I learned. I can't play them all anymore, but I mean,
you have
Her Majesty, Yesterday, Blackbird, Something in the Way She Moves, Day Tripper, everything. I played them all, man.
That was the first thing I ever learned to play on the guitar was Day Tripper.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the teacher would like write the song out and then put the chord change over whatever word.
Okay.
And actually the first time my mother had a small, I was the kind of kid that would like go through all my parents' shits. I found my mom's albums. She had like 20 records, and in the basement she had like, Dr. John's In the Right Place, Donovan's Greatest Hits, the White Album, Bob Dylan, Greatest Hits Volume 1, Bob Marley and the Wailers, Rastaman Vibration, Jimmy Buffett, the record with him with the boat up.
Yep. Man, that's a good wide selection right there.
Willie and Waylon,
Nice.
Carole King, James Taylor. So yeah, really cool. But the first time I put on a Beatles record was to figure out how to do the talking part for Rocky Raccoon, because I was like, how can you get all these words over this change?
It's the rappiest the Beatles ever got.
Yeah. So yeah, started kind of acoustic, that acoustic folk rock. And Philadelphia, for all the hip hop that was going on, there's also a lot of folk music. And there's the Philadelphia Folk Song Society, the Philadelphia Folk Festival. We would go to the folk festival in the summertime and volunteer to get to go to free. And then you'd hear people like Taj Mahal and then Bluegrass and Tom Rush, Dave Van Ronk, and people like that. And then I started writing songs, and then I was definitely the only kid in my high school that was like doing like a Bob Dylan thing,
Mm-hmm. Were you playing harmonica then too, or?
Yeah, I started when I was like 15 playing a harp.
Yeah.
And I immediately got the rack. So then that set me apart from everybody else. But then when I went to open mic nights to start trying, because I always had this, as far as like writing songs, I wanted to then perform them and record them on my, my boombox.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's what I wanted to do. So but when I went to open mic nights, look, other people heard of Bob Dylan. Oh shit. Now what? So then I went. So then I thought I was the only one. I still feel like that. Like when people are like, Bob Dylan's my biggest influence, I was like, what are you fucking talking about, man? That's me, man. But yeah, so I went to this record store, 3rd Street Jazz and Rock in Philadelphia, and I said, do you have anybody that plays acoustic guitar and harmonica on the rack other than Bob Dylan and Neil Young? And then they gave me
John Hammond.
Then they gave me John Hammond's record called Country Blues. And that was the second kind of, sky open up, light shine on me, epiphany moment, was when I took that home and put that on. And that first note of him playing State Sparrow Blues came on. And it was just like, what? That was like, that's what I want to sound like. I want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that was the journey to learn about the blues and to try to figure out how to play that John Hammond record.
That's no easy feat. His right hand is like a freight train.
Oh my God. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Still. So was John sort of the gateway for you to like Skip James and Son House and Book of White and all that kind of stuff? Or like, did you go pretty deep from him? Okay. Yeah,
because his record was all, it's only recently that he's put out stuff that he wrote. Most of his records are his renditions of everybody else. So then I learned about Robert Johnson and Lightning Hopkins, Sleepy John Estes, and Big Bill Broonzy, and then the blues is like, look, it's it's kind of weird to even call it one genre when you look at the difference between, Mississippi John Hurt and, Book of White, for instance.
It's a totally different set of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so cool to get to do like a deep dive on all these records.
Yeah.
So that's what and the blues is this. And so then when I'm trying to get my, 18-year-old Yankee make herself to like sound like Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf or something, or Robert Johnson, like something happened to my voice, which you hear on the first, and I think especially in the second record, there's really like vocal inflection that I had kind of developed through trying to emulate what, and best I could, what I was hearing on those records,
Yeah,
and that's so, yeah.
And guitar wise, were you going in and like trying to learn, licks from all those players? Like, I don't really hear you doing that necessarily. Like I sort of hear your guitar side of things kind of like just like you sort of do your own thing. And I can hear like a little bit of Jimmy Reed and a little bit of other stuff in there, but it doesn't sound like you've necessarily sat down and like learned Fred McDowell tunes note for note or anything like that.
Well, I mean, I kind of did, but yeah, because if you listen to, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. Like on the first record, if you listen to the song Garbage Man, so basically what happened is I would go in and start learning a record, whatever that was going to be. And then, and because there was no YouTube lessons at the time, you had to try and figure it out on your own. And then you don't even know what tuning these guys are in.
Totally. Yeah.
And so you're trying to make chords to trying to catch what they're doing. And then you stumble upon all this cool shit. And then I would make a song with it. So that's basically like, so I would like be like learning, you know, whatever, like, you know, Shake 'Em On Down by Booker White. And then I would say, oh, just come make this cool chord. Then I would stop learning it and write a song, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you listen to my song Garbage Man on the first record, you know, you'll hear that was me learning, you know, Muddy Waters, like I've been 2 Trains Running.
Oh yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
That was that. And then like Cold Beverage has this little ding gink gink gink. The gink 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 is from John Hammond's version of 3220 Blues, where he goes, well, you know, I got 3220, but he was mostly like gang gang gang, but I just sped it up.
Yeah. Okay.
So everything that I was doing were from the chords and then like another example is on the song Sweet Sugar Mama, which is on the second record. There's this little Lightning Hopkins riff I do when it goes to the 4 chord. So there's I'll always be like sprinkled in the little riffs that I appropriated from the blues legends. And you know, and also too lyrically, I mean, look, I mean, you know, the first song for the first record, I just started rapping and
things that I just sang
the things I used to do, which is like my favorite blues record. And you know, I don't know. I guess I mean I didn't even think about it then, but like I call it appropriation now because like I do visual art now and just seeing like, you know, what artists like Cause or Andy Warhol like appropriate, you know, the soup can or the Snoopy shit. You know, that's what music is. I mean, you know, music is no one out here invented the wheel, including Robert Johnson. So. Yep. You know, everyone's ripping everybody off or not even ripping everybody. I'm just kind of continuing. It's a continuance, right? You know,
tell me about that track, The Things I Used to Do, because that is a cool statement that you guys made. It's your first track. You're the first thing anyone hears of you when they put on your record for the first time in 93 or 94 or whenever that was. And yeah, it is like you sing basically the chorus of the tune and then you start rapping. Is that something that you'd kind of developed already by that point, or was that like a very off the cuff thing?
Well, yeah, that was kind of an example of what we were doing at our live shows. Cause of course we had a repertoire that was growing. That particular night was just, especially that you see Jeff every once in a while. It's a great story because basically, but yeah, no, we'd play bars and like I was always freestyling. So, you know, that was, and we would just get cooking as a band. And Jim is such a creative force, and Jeff will go along for the ride if everything's feeling good. So, you know, you let me go, you let us go, let Jim and I get going, and we'll take you on a journey if you keep playing the drums, you know. But basically, that night was a really special night that I'll never forget because we had just gotten the Keeper version of the first single, Blues Music.
Yep.
And basically Jeff's, you know, because we were like, okay, wow, okay, we got that, you know, because it was just one of these moments you get chills up your spine and everyone plays it perfect and you're like, and everyone agrees, okay, we just did it, you know, we captured the lightning in a bottle for blues music. And then Jeff's like getting ready, all right, well, let's head out. I was like, whoa, hold on. No, bro, let's keep jamming. Like, we're on fire right now. So, well, Jeff's like, he always want to take a nap. So, oh, what do you want to do? Oh, he's such a crap. Oh, what do you want to do? Jim had been playing that bass line earlier. And then I was like, Jim, what was that bass line you were playing earlier? And then he's like, yeah, okay, Jeff, play like this. He don't even know how to like explain it. But he just like, yeah, just play like, something. So Jeff said, all right. So then you just hear what happened. Like Jeff just plays this dope fill, launches into that beat, which is sick.
Mm-hmm.
His drums are like, the sound is unbelievable. And Jim comes in with the bass line, and you can hear us going, oh shit, yeah. And then you can hear me check the harmonica to see if I'm in the right key, which I happen to be in the right key. And then I just came right in. And then so basically we jammed for a 22-minute jam. The tape ran out, but we were recording the whole session continuously to DAT.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
basically, we had this 22-minute jam, which I went through and, cherry picked the moments, and we put together the arrangement. So the arrangement had elements from the 2-inch tape and then elements from the DAT.
Oh, wow.
We edited together, and then that became the first song for the record. And then it was funny because Blues Music was going to get in this Nike commercial with William Burroughs, but by accident, when they had the meeting, the creative guy at the ad agency or whatever said, this is the music we're going to use. G Loves Blues Music. By accident, he put on the things I used to do.
Really?
That's the one they put in the commercial.
Oh, wow.
So, but that was it. And then I just freestyled the lyric, and it was just one of those magical moments. And then we let Jeff go home.
Okay. So it was just like very spur of the moment. Like there was no necessarily a plan to do that song or anything like that.
It was a freestyle that would just happen studio. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's so cool. So what do you remember about that session? Like, was it in Boston?
No, it was in Philadelphia. That was
another
interesting part about my career was that I left Philadelphia to move to Boston to have focus away from my friends and family and just to figure out, see if I could do music. And then I met my band, and then we had look, the drill. Like it was impossible to get into the music business now. It just requires a laptop and Wi-Fi, right?
Pretty much.
And any kid could be the next Taylor Swift. Take Billie Eilish, for instance. Yep. But when we were kids, you couldn't get there because you couldn't even send a demo to a record label unless it was sent by a music attorney or a manager. So
there were gatekeepers.
Yeah. So there was these, as you recall, there was the conferences, and there was I was at the Tower Records in Harvard Square, and I saw the flyer for the Philadelphia Music Conference. So I sent my demo, and I got this message. I got this message from my roommate, wrote down while I was at work. Dave Johnson from Studio 4, Rough House Records, loves the song Fresh Lila. They want you to come to Philly, blah, blah, blah. And I was like winning the lottery, And so crazy enough, a couple months later where he said, you're going to come down and play the Philadelphia Music Conference, and then we're going to go in the studio. Well, we show up at this club called Revival. It's going to be us opening for this band called the Square Roots, who are the Roots.
Oh, wow.
And because they were getting pretty big in Philly, along with this band called the Goats. And Dave Johnson, the producer, comes up. He goes, well, he came and met us, and he kind of took a look at us, and he goes, and I go, what time should we be at the studio tomorrow? He goes, yeah, the studio's booked. And we were like, oh, man, dude, we had just literally played a gig, drove from, 2 till 8 in the morning, to be here. And now we're not going to be in the studio. So yeah, we go do our show. We come off the stage. She goes, it was awesome. Be at the studio at 10 a.m. And then we basically started recording what would be our record. So anyhow, long story short is that we started working with him at Studio 4, which was really exciting to me because that was where everything was happening. Like Schoolie D was making a comeback record.
Mm-hmm.
The Roots were hanging around there. The producer Scott Storch,
Oh yeah,
who was just he plays piano on This Ain't Living, and that's his first record that he came out on.
He got massive, like not too long after that. Jeez.
Well, yeah, like 10 years, but
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, like he became one of the biggest producers ever in the world, and snorted it up his nose, but that's a different story. But at the time, he was like an 18-year-old. I was 20, and he was like 18.
Okay.
So he played on the record. The Cypress Hill had just done their groundbreaking record there. Chris Cross, Fugees. I mean, it was happening, and it was right in the city, so it was just everybody was trying to get in there, and we got in there, and it was this great live room. You know, Dave Johnson, our producer, he kind of got these sounds, and, you know, Jeff, props to Jeff and Jim for really having all of us really, because what we wanted to do was capture what we're doing live.
Mm-hmm.
And so we basically all playing in the same room together, except I think Jim's amp was isolated, but my amp was in the room.
Oh, cool.
I have two amps in the room. I have one amp that has my Bullet microphone.
For the harp?
And that's running, for my vocal.
Oh, for your vocal. Okay, yeah.
That's running through the room. So also in the first record, because a lot of the first records just live vocals, but you can hear sometimes when it's an overdub, and you can hear the ghost because it's in the room.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And, you know, Jeff had this huge, I mean, you should talk to Matt because he'll love to talk about his drums, you know, but he had the 28-inch, you know, calf skin, kick drum. That's that big sound on blues music.
Yep.
But yeah, he would let his snare drum have that ring to it, you know?
Was there a label involved at that point, or were you just like kind of doing it on spec, or what was the deal with like the business side of things for you?
The deal was that, yeah, we were just, I don't know that we had signed like a production. I don't think we ever signed a production deal with Dave Johnson, but he was having us to the studio, and then he started shopping us. But then we got a manager that shopped us in New York after we played the New Music Seminar. I don't even know what I was saying, Holiday Inn, that's it. So by the end of that summer of 93, we had about, you know, half of the record done, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were, you know, then we signed then we played some showcases in New York for, you know, the labels, and we had like a little bit of I think we could have had more of a bidding war, but we ended up signing with this guy, Michael Kaplan, who to me was like, there's a couple of people that wanted to sign us. One was a guy, Rick Chertoff, who signed Joan Osborne.
Oh, yeah.
So Joan was coming to like all our New York shows and like hanging around and like really supportive, and she was super cool. And anyhow, but Rick was like, he was a really nice guy, and it was really boring to me. Like I would be in his in a meeting in his office, like I felt like I was going to fall asleep because he's like, we want to really, you know, develop you and work on songs for the next 6 months. I'm like, what?
You're like, dude, I got like 100 songs.
Go.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. I don't want to hear that shit. I want to make a record. I'm already making a record. And Michael Kaplan was, to me, that what I pictured, you know, Jewish, cigar smoking, music business, fucking gangster.
I'm going to take you to the top, kid.
That was my guy. So
Okay.
that's who I signed with, Epic Records, in October. And then we finished the record. We did a 2-week session at the end of the year. And that was it. We had the record in the can.
In those days, you caught the kind of the golden tail end of like big budgets and stuff. Were they throwing money around at you to finish the record, or was it always meant to be a very low budget affair?
I don't know. What did we get? A $250,000 advance for the first record?
Wow, that's pretty damn good. That doesn't happen these days that much.
Yeah.
That's a healthy advance to finish a record like that. Like it wasn't, that was probably not an expensive record to make.
Well, look, I mean, you know, I think everybody got paid. Like,
right.
You know, Jim and Jeff each got $40,000, and We had to pay Dave Johnson maybe. I think he got paid $25,000 to finish the record. Plus, maybe he got paid for his back end studio time, and I was able to put some money away, which luckily my father like put into a mutual fund, and because that became like the last advance that they didn't make us like spend all of it, you know?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because pretty much like after that, I mean, well, maybe the second record, we there's a little leftover, but
because I would wager that was a wildly successful record.
Yeah, I mean, it was. We didn't really realize it because we were just like on the grindstone. But
yeah.
But then you realize that it was when the next record came out and really wasn't really smacking on the same kind of response. So
what happened for you guys, like crowd wise, between say like playing your weekly gigs around Boston, and I'm guessing that you were probably doing like little stints out regionally and stuff, but then by the time the first record comes out, you must be doing national tours all over the place, right?
Yeah, well, I think the first tour we did nationally was to open up for the Violent Femmes.
Oh, cool.
So that was playing in front of big clubs, I guess, at that time.
Yeah.
And
did you start headlining though, like around then too, or did that take a while?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we started headlining right away, like doing we started headlining doing clubs, and they will always be sold out. So yeah. I feel like from 1994 to 2008, we were mostly sold out, like every place we're playing. And it's like kind of like, and then there was a thing like our first agent was this guy Bob Lawton, and he was like his like baby, his true band was Sonic Youth.
Okay.
And so he but he was super he was like a hip booking agent to have.
Right.
And he curated us really good. But it just got to a point where we're like, dude, every night sold out. Like we're turning away like a shit ton of people every night. Like, this is crazy. Like, we need to be playing bigger. We need to be playing bigger rooms. So then we switched agents and then started playing bigger rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good. Well, yeah, look, no, it was because we were already seasoned. Look, I was seasoned as a performer when I met my band from playing on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were almost 10 years older than me, so they were seasoned performers as well. And then we had been playing around Boston all that year, 3 sets a night at the Irish Bar. So we were ready.
You're popping. Yeah.
Yeah. And we know how to put on a show, and like, we know how to take a crowd on a trip. And so that's what we did. So I think right off the bat, like, we did get some notoriety as, a band that could really deliver live, and that's been everything for us. Yeah.
Your second record was like a couple years later, and you guys worked with Jim Dickinson. What was that experience like? Like, sort of a pretty legendary producer. That's pretty cool. Was he somebody that you knew, or like how did that come about?
No, I mean, and look, I think Jim was. I learned a lot from Jim. I wish that we should have done the second record with Dave Johnson and
just the same crew. Yeah.
Yeah, because we also had most of it in the can, probably, because we had another record's worth of awesome songs in the same genre, the same thing that was clicking. And because of the fact that like they started putting us on all of these like conferences on the hip hop thing, and just playing for hip hop crowds like was like the worst. Because they didn't want to hear us. Well, they didn't want to hear us, and hip hop was a certain thing, especially then.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 3 white guys playing instruments. It could be white guys or black guys, but it's hip hop. It needs to be like a DJ and rappers, and that's not what we were. And sonically, we couldn't compete against that.
Mm-hmm.
If people were playing to a DAT, And so I was just like, and I was a hip hop kid. I mean, I am a hip hop kid, and I was like, fuck this, man. I want to just play the blues. And that's why, I didn't know anything about Jim, but then we met Jim, and we're going to go on this journey with him to New Orleans. or Memphis. So we chose New Orleans in the end and make this record with Jim and really kind of go into the more blues R&B side of town. And I think that we really struggled making that record because we were
Really?
tired and cranky after being so overworked. We shouldn't have been making a record. And, you know, for Jim's point, you know, he's kind of a gentle producer. And yeah, like I think that he did as best a job he could as to what we had to offer at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And certainly, you know, I love Jim and I love working with him and you know, I'm dearly great friends with, you know, Luther produced my last record, his son. So like we're family and I guess if I could do it again, I would say that let me do that as my third record with Jim.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
It was great. And the funny story about that record is just that we were really struggling, like I said, and that's no fault of Jim's, but
just like personality wise, you guys were sort of like at each other's throat a bit, or what was?
It was just flat. It was just flat. You know, it's like we're cutting tunes. There's like nothing's jumping off the tape, and you know, you know how it is. You can play a song a million times, and it doesn't. If it's not like vibing, then it's So we were disappointing ourselves, and then we were at C Saint Studios this week, Alan Two Saint Studio, and we went. Jim's like, let's go get a drink. Or we went down the street to the bar to have lunch or whatever, and then Jim said, "Here, let's take some acid." So we took some acid. and so the thing is that like Jeff also he would be really pissed if he found out we did that. So we had to be secretive about it. So we came back and we start cutting, and all of a sudden like we're just
it's
crushing
happening.
It.
Okay,
it's happening. And then we're playing this song called Move Me, and it's this real downbeat kind of emotional song. You can hear the recording because like I'm giving this great performance and everybody is, and then all of a sudden I just fall on the ground laughing. And Jeff's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, man? Just ruined the take." Like I literally ruined the keeper take. And then he's like, "Oh my God, you guys are tripping." Well, it turns out while we were doing that, Jim Dickinson smoked joints all day. So while we were doing that, Jeff actually did something he never does, which is to get high. So Jeff had smoked hash with Jim Dickinson, and we were tripping, and that was the secret sauce. And we basically cut. So that day we cut till all the tape was going and all Jim's weed was going, and we just wanted to keep playing. And then Jim's like, "That's it. Everyone go home. We're done." And then we basically cut the whole record that night, and then just used a couple songs here and there from other nights. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's pretty cool, but we got it done, you know?
Hey, man, whatever it takes, you know? So you mentioned Luther. I know Luther a little bit. And so he's Jim's son, lives here in Nashville. And so I didn't realize that he was producing. So Philadelphia, Mississippi, that's him producing that one.
Yeah. Because we all met, right? We met like, and I think how it happened was that those guys were fans of us.
Yeah.
And they told their dad about us. And then Jim reached out to Michael Kaplan and said he was interested in producing.
Yeah.
I think that's how it happened. And and of course Jim was a famous producer. So Michael of course knew Jim, so blah blah blah. But look, so we became friends with Luther and Cody, like we're all the same age. So we became friends then, and we've been talking about doing something for years, and then we finally got a chance during COVID to make that Philadelphia, Mississippi record. So that was really cool.
Tell me a bit about that recording, because that's a really cool record, and I think it's some of your strongest work, and so I just wondered how. So was it done remotely?
No, it was because we were doing during COVID. I got a Bose PA, and we started offering soulbacues, backyard parties.
Nice.
And so my wife took over as management day-to-day shit, and she booked us this tour, and then we got a gig with the small festival in Jackson, Mississippi, with the Devin Allman, no,
Yeah.
the Devin
The
Devin
Almond Betts.
the Allman Betts,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so so now I knew I was going down there, and I knew I wanted to make this record called Philadelphia, Mississippi, because there's a city called Philadelphia, Mississippi, and
Oh, okay.
I'm from Philadelphia, and the blues is from Mississippi, so I wanted to make a record with that name. And I
Okay.
wanted to do a follow-up from the Juice album, which was the Grammy-nominated record,
Yeah.
and go for the Grammy for contemporary blues. So
Wanted to lean into that blues side of things a bit.
yeah, so I originally called Luther and said, "Do you know a studio in Philadelphia, Mississippi?" And he's like, "No, why don't you do it here?" And I was like, "Okay." So
Mhm.
basically, then he because everybody was off the road, right? Because it was in COVID.
This is like the Zebra Ranch, his family's
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
And so it just was a full circle kind of moment because, of course, we didn't cut with Jim at Zebra Ranch, but he took us to Zebra Ranch
Oh, cool.
in
Okay.
1994.
Whoa.
So it was really cool to get to record there, and man, what a vibe! Like Luther gets out of that room, and he was able to gather all of his community it was like a Hill Country Blues Summit. It was really magical, and actually R.L. Boyce, who is an old timer Hill Country Blues guy, he came down. That was like the greatest night of my life as a bluesman, getting to sit and play harmonica with this whole blues man.
Mm.
And we basically we're working on a record out of that session that night, because since then RL's passed. So it's very sad. So we're trying to do something with those performances from that night. But yeah, like it was great. And then we took it and we did post-production in Massachusetts and Philadelphia and there, and got other people on it, like the rappers and stuff. So it was a really cool project. And
So with,
I don't know why it was like overlooked. It's just funny how I don't know how the Grammys work, but I'm sure like a lot of the reason that I got the nomination for the Juice was that because Keb' Mo is a producer and his team is completely, they're
connected.
he's won a lot of, yes. And Luther's also got a lot of nominations,
Yeah, he does.
but I don't know. It was pretty upsetting that record got completely overlooked for that category. But the reason I say that, dude, is because,
It's a cool record nonetheless.
no one buys records, so why do you make records? I'm like, well, I want to get a Grammy. That's a big reason for me to make records right now.
Okay.
Because if there's one thing you can get out of a record, right, it's not like a lottery ticket anymore. I love to write songs and do the creative stuff, sure, but no one wants to lose money, which is what making a record is.
Yeah.
So how do you justify making a record? Well, for me, I want to get a Grammy. You know what I mean?
Okay, you got a mission. I love it.
Yeah, man.
The stuff with Alvin Youngblood Hart, he's a buddy of mine too. Did he record at Luther's place, or did he go and travel to his place to do that stuff?
No, he came. Yeah, he was there because he lives in Memphis.
Yeah.
So he came in, and dude, he's so awesome, man.
Yeah. Had you worked with him before?
Well, we were both on OK Records.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
But that being said, no, we hadn't ever worked before. I don't even know that we ever really hung out or met, but he is so awesome, man. Like I got this great picture of him sitting in Zebra Ranch, and he's actually I think he's sitting on the toilet as a chair. And then the door goes outside, and it's John Tavius Willis, Kingfish, and then their buddy J. Rob watching Alvin play, because those Kingfish and John Tavius, they're young men, and they're like kids, and they were just so it was like the coolest thing to watch. These guys, yo, Mr. Alvin, play another one.
Yeah, he's great, man. And now he is like sort of an elder statesman. Although he'd punch me in the nose if he heard me say that. So there's a song, Hip Hop Harpin'. Is that you and Alvin playing harps? You guys are both like rack harp players. That's cool.
Yeah, but I think we weren't playing on the rack. But yeah, that's him. Yeah. And he's such a good harp player.
Yes.
So that's really cool. The interesting thing about harmonica is everyone's approach is that it's a natural. The way you play harmonica is just the natural way you are. I think. You know?
Yeah. Tell me a bit about Sade
Sade Thomas was the
Thomas.
granddaughter of Othar Turner.
Yeah, she is something else, man. I saw her recently here, and she can sing her ass off, and but the fife stuff too is incredible, eh?
Yeah, and that's her husband Chris, who plays the drums with her.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. I saw him too, I guess.
But she so that's an Othar Turner song that she sang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, she was. It was such a man. It was just such an amazing session. That day in particular was really cool because actually, Takara Jackson from Southern Avenue, who plays drums at Southern Avenue, she came. She did her song first, and that was like so awesome, and she crushed it. And Sade and Luther were kind of we were finished up with Takara. Sade and Luther were kind of practicing their thing out on the lawn or whatever, and then she came in and did her vibe was so different.
Yeah.
And singing is just, oh man, it was like, wow. It's one of my favorite songs on the record. And
had you heard her before? Like, did you know what to expect, or was it just totally out of left field? Oh, really? Okay.
No, I mean, no, Luther said, because Luther, I didn't really know anybody.
Oh, okay.
Except I brought John Tavius. John Tavius brought Kingfish. You know, we tried to get Cedric Burnside, but he had declined for whatever reason. I don't know, but it was kind of it was kind of a bummer because originally I wanted him to produce the album, but everything has a way of taking its own path. But
yeah.
But then his old guitar player, Trent Ayers, who's a dear friend of mine who doesn't play with Cedric these days, but he came and he's on a bunch of songs. But yeah, Sade was great in the sound of the fife, you know, because it's just the one key. It's in the key of D, so you play it over
right
G like a
harp. Yeah.
No, you play it in the key of D. It's not cross harp. So yeah. Well, yeah, she was really cool, and that thing has such a cool flavor. So, and then I did a track with them that's worth checking out on their project, and I just can't remember the name of the song right now, but.
So who plays drums on that record, the Philadelphia, Mississippi record?
So it's Chuck Treese, who's the current drummer in Special Sauce.
Okay.
Who Chuck also is like a legendary musician and professional skater out of Philadelphia. So like some of his accolades were that he was the first African-American skateboarder to be on the cover of Thrasher magazine in the 80s. So he like opened that sport up in a lot of ways to the Black community. And he's also been a legendary kind of force in music, helping Santi White, aka Santo Gold, do her thing. He was on some of our early demos. Mm-hmm. He was in part of the Roots. He was in Bad Brains. He toured with Urge Overkill. He's been on a ton of records. He's worth Googling. Chuck Treese. And so yeah, Chuck plays most of the bass and drums on the record, as well as, you know, plenty of vocals and like guitar as well. So he's really he's an unbelievable person and musician. Very lucky to get to play with him.
And who's on bass with you live these days?
Live is Jimmy Jazz, the original bass player. Yeah.
So you guys have been at it for a while now.
Yeah, cool. This is our 30th anniversary tour we're out on right now, and
wow,
it's cool. You know, we're playing the whole first record, and it's been fantastic. It's cool. The whole tour has been almost sold out, and
amazing.
Yeah, we're doing. You know, we're playing small clubs still. That's our specialty, selling out small clubs.
Man. Back at it. That's awesome. So what's next for you? Do you have plans to make another record, or what's where are you at in that whole process?
Yeah, like a couple things going on. There's a project right now. I'm working with a producer out of Nashville named Johnny Black. Do you know him?
I don't. No.
He did Southern Avenues. He's done a bunch of stuff, but he's a great producer. And he and his songwriter Sam Hollander and Aloe Black and Robert Randolph and myself have kind of this project we're working on, which is a kind of a contemporary blues project. So that's kind of in the works. I'm also kind of chipping away at the RL voice record. And then I think this next fall, we hope to have like a new G Love record out in 25.
Have you written material for that yet?
It's kind of like, yes and no, because I'm just kind of letting it unfold right now as far as what that's going to be, and when I hone in on, look, like I said, my goal is to get the Contemporary Blues Grammy. So that's a side of it, but there's also things that are happening. There's different also things that are happening with different artists. Like I did a collaboration with this band Little Stranger, and that's this guy John Shields out of Philly, and they're just really having a moment right now. He's been working out of our studio for years before he cracked it, and so part of me is thinking, well, maybe I would do something more hip hop. The G Love record just kind of unfolding.
Yeah, that's
and I'm just gonna let it do that,
Yeah, man, just let it.
But
happen.
yeah, we'll put out a live record from this tour, and then I have we're re-releasing, like Record Store Day, the vinyl for the first record gets re-released. So
cool.
Yeah, there's things that are coming out to keep the momentum going, and we're just gonna kind of make sure that I just the deal, like making records this day and age, you really gotta, especially for me doing this thing, I gotta really make sure it's gonna be the right move at the right time and thought out. So taking my time with that.
Yeah.
A long way of saying I don't know what the fuck's happening.
So are you guys recording every night on the tour?
No, but we got we did 2 nights in Annapolis at the Rams Head on stage, and just had 2 really what we thought were pretty magical shows, and they were multi-tracked. So
great.
I think we're gonna do that live in Annapolis. That'll be it. Yeah,
that'll be nice.
I think it's gonna be called Cold Beverage 1994. Yeah, that's what's
wicked. I love it. Right on. Well, thanks, Garrett. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm glad to see you're at a hotel. I hope that's your hotel, and you didn't get
yes. The Holiday Inn, man. Hey, look, Steve, if you keep doing this long enough, you get to stay in nice places like the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, man.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the time, man, and great to hear some of your stories, and it's cool to talk to you after all these years of listening to your records. I go way back with your music, so it's cool to kind of put a face to the music. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I imagine that next time you see Jeff play in Nashville, you might want to bend his ear a little bit.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna get him on this show too. He's got a few stories to tell.
He's great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks so much for your time and for having us on, man. That was great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck on the rest of the tour.
All right, Steve. Have a good one. Peace.
Music Makers and Soul Shakers is a bi-weekly podcast produced at the Hen House Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find us at makersandshakerspodcast.com. Thanks again to our sponsors this season, Larrivee Guitars, Fishman Pickups, Chase Bliss Pedals, Union Tube and Transistor, Spectra 1964, and the Hen House Hang. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.